So this is the book about mending the soul, understanding and healing abuse. Or I can read this one. It says Mary sobbed uncontrollably on the bathroom floor. Her mother stroked her hair and held her until she could finally speak. Mary's first day of school had been a parent's worst nightmare. She had gotten into a fight with a classmate, had threatened the principal, and was on the verge of being expelled from school. And Mary's parents, missionaries of a Christian organization in the inner city of San Francisco, were beside themselves ever since she entered adolescence. Mary had grown increasingly rebellious, withdrawn. The precious little girl who wore fairy dresses and drew pictures of puppies now wore black and drew pictures of corpses. Mary attempted suicide twice in junior high school in fits of rage. She would curse her parents for not aborting her. Before she was born, her parents sought help for her counselors, their youth pastor, and even the family doctor, but nothing seemed to help it. It felt though they were in a losing battle with an invisible demon that was consuming their daughter's soul. Finally, Mary began to speak to her mother in barely audible whispers. She told about a boy at school who had threatened her friend. As her mother began to question the depth of her rage at the boy, the long invisible dragon began to take shape. Her crew classmate and triggered dark memories she spent years trying to escape. Finally, she could no longer hold back the terrible images. She shamefully recounted that 5 years earlier, her cousin had sexually molested her over a period of 2 years while he was babysitting her. The molesting stopped once her family moved to San Francisco, but her cousin continued to make sexual suggestions, comments whenever she came to visit. Mary's parents immediately contacted the authorities and the rest of the family. The authorities chose not to prosecute the case since there was no physical evidence. The attendant family turned on Mary and her parents with a revenge. They accused Mary of trying to destroy the family by making up lies. They accused Mary's parents of using the cousin as a scapegoat for their poor parenting, and they threatened to report Mary's parents to the mission board to get them removed from their ministry. Even when 3 other children came forward and reported that the cousin had founded them, the entire attendant family refused to believe or support Mary. They argued that if the cousin had done something inappropriate to Mary, it was in the past, and she was obligated to forgive and forget. To add assault to injury, they rebuked Mary for her anger toward her cousin and said it showed how sinful and unchristian she really was. 2 years after disclosing the abusive, Mary still wasn't sure she could believe in a God who watched her cousin molest her, but did nothing to stop it. I wish Mary's story were merely a hypothetical example. It is not. My ministry to Mary and her family has permanently transformed my understanding of abuse. It also raises troubling questions for all Christians. How widespread is abuse? How can abuse that happened years earlier continue to have an impact? And how can parents, youth workers, and single adults looking for life partners identify potential abusers? How can abuse victims heal? What does genuine healing look like? And where does forgiveness fit in? These are some of the questions this book seeks to answer for all too long. The church has ignored or even covered up abuse. By God's grace, this must change. The Meddling Soul divided in 3 parts. Part 1 addresses the nature of abuse. Here I seek to give a biblical explanation for abuse, define exactly what constitutes abuse, and looks at the characteristics of abusers and abusive families. I examine 5 different kinds of abuse, all of which distort the image of God and hence are very damaging. And then we have to wait till I get the book.